I just can't stay away from prattling on about Lorne for too long, can I? So I was kind of like, this was just kind of like, I had a conversation with a friend, and it made me think about something that, how important a certain aspect, how important self-discipline is in people's lives who actually, not necessarily successful with regard to what the world would view as successful, but just live a decent quality life. You don't need massive amounts of money, or maybe I'm just saying that because I'm not rich, but it is true. There's nothing wrong with those things. That's fantastic. But you can achieve anything with self-discipline, and it kind of I live a bizarre life. I'm interested in a lot of things, read about so many different aspects and facets of life, but yet it always comes back to this guy. I don't know why. It's fucking weird, isn't it? But yeah, I was just thinking about how important self-discipline and then I started thinking, what is it? Is that an important factor in Lorne's demise? And of course, it's one of them. It's quite big, and it stems. If you look at what you would consider to be an unsuccessful, well, not unsuccessful, because that conjures up in images of, like, being a billionaire or on fucking Shark's Tank or something. I love Shark's Tank, fucking love that. Anyway, if you look at somebody who, how can I put it, is not a healthy human. Well, even that's wrong, but successful is probably a good way of putting it. If you put aside the monetary situation, you could have a fulfilling job, which doesn't make you rich, but basically means that you can have a decent life, and you contribute. That's the most important thing. If you contribute something positive, there's two types of people in this world. There's them that contribute, and there's them that take away. And people that you would consider to be massively successful are not the ones that contribute. They take away. People, let's just say somebody's worked ridiculously hard and the head of advertising at Pepsi. Now, I'm not saying that they're evil, but what are you contributing to the world there? You are trying to get people to be unhealthy. Your job is to brainwash human beings to drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi, whatever, which is going to massively affect their life in a negative way. There's no positives from drinking stuff like that. You might, you go to the cinema and it tastes great. Right, but if you are successful at your job, that means many, many people will die. And that it seems like a bit of an over-the-top example, but it's true. That's not success at all. And like I said, those people are not evil. It very much depends on. They would look at it in a very specific, narrow way, in that that's their version of survival. They want to be successful. They want the money. They want to feed the children. They want the lavish holidays because they believe that's what they're here to do. And from a certain aspect, it's understandable. That's the way the world's set up in a degree. But no, I mean, if you get to that point and you are contributing, to people's demise, that's not positive change at all. You could have somebody who does a job like, I don't know, some kind of welfare officer, or does little talks with people, like group workshops to try and get people who have negative thoughts to think better. But yet you could earn a modest wage. And yet you find true fulfillment in that, and you change people's lives for the better. Do you think that the head of fucking Pepsi advertising is going to change people's lives for the better? Probably not. However, everything's not always black and white. It could very well be that the head of that marketing at Pepsi could use all his money to charitable situations, but then again, you'd have to ask, we're getting pretty deep as usual, you'd have to ask, on the balance of it, is he doing more good than harm? It'd be a very difficult question to answer. But so, with Lorne, he is certainly someone that doesn't contribute positively. Although, the grey area comes back, because if you look at all the Lornography situation and all the people in the community that sort of come together from him from his downfall. But that is just a byproduct of his actions. And if you want to get really posh, listen to this, guys. Epiphenomenon, I believe, is the posh word of saying byproduct. It's not anything that he's done deliberately. So he'd use it to his advantage if he could, but of course we're not going to let him. So from his perspective, he's surviving. But of course, he drains from the judicial system. He drains from his family. He drains from those around him. I believe that just a minor kind of example was when he was talking to Tiffany. I believe that he had someone do some work on his trailer. What work, to what extent, and the value, I don't know, but he wouldn't pay them. He just kind of refused to pay the people that had done it because he couldn't be bothered. He justified it in some stupid way to try and make it look like, he wasn't a bad guy. But ultimately, it's because he couldn't be bothered. And what Lorne's too fucking stupid to realise, and it's just bizarre that he still hasn't cottoned onto it, is that in the short term, yeah, he's going to have saved money through not paying that guy. But eventually those things will catch up with him. The guy might see, you cannot escape karma. And karma isn't some magic force. Karma is the consequences of your poor state of consciousness. So every action that you do, there is something else to it. It's kind of a mystical quality. I haven't really figured that out. But on a very basic level, it's merely the consequences of your poor actions. So he doesn't realise that, he might be saving a few $100s, but later down the line, it'll catch him up. There's no escape. That's the essence of what lack of self-discipline does. You want the quick and easy fix. You want the immediate gratification from junk food. You want to stay in bed rather than exercising. You want to not do the hard work in your job because you're too lazy. And this is his old problem, isn't it? It's many, many people's problems, the self-discipline aspect. It's that it's almost... And it's a strange situation because at some point, I think back to my younger days, and we all have. There's very few people in the world that have been super disciplined since a very young age. I believe Elon Musk used to read 2 books a day. I should probably read a bit more about his life. I think I'm going to do that actually. That's just made me realise what I need to do. But I believe, is it fucking possible to read 2 books a day? I suppose it is. Yeah, I suppose it is. But do you think you get to where he's got by being sloppy and lazy? He's an extreme example. He's one of the most... He'll probably be one of the richest guys that's ever lived eventually. I believe he fucking owns PayPal. Fuck me, can you believe that? Wow. It's just crazy, isn't it? But yeah, he will have got that. Where that comes from inside yourself, I don't know, but he's always had that hunger for success, or it might not necessarily have been, I don't know much about his early life, it might not necessarily have been financial success that drove him. It drives a lot of people and most, but deeper within that, you have a need to better yourself, and you have to have understanding to people like Lorne, who are born into a world that they don't really understand, very difficult upbringing. But what's very strange about this Lorne situation is that life keeps trying to help him. It won't seem like that from his perspective, because he'll think, oh fucking hell, I keep getting catfished, oh fucking hell, I keep end up back in court, someone's ringing me up and calling me a dirty this, that and the other, my fucking brothers are giving me shit. Everywhere he looks, he'll see enemies and frustration. And the world's meant to be like that, but the world's kind of giving him a nudge and saying, listen, dickhead, you need to sort yourself out here. Do you not realise what you're doing? But he just doesn't. He refuses to. And being in prison for that amount of time was a perfect opportunity for him to straighten up and fly right, basically, to just take stock. And if you think about this, right, if you were in jail for what he'd done. And there's so many elements that make it ridiculous. Like, just think about the fact that he spent a month talking to a fictional character. Because a lot of the predators will have been, like, talking to them for a couple of days, maybe a week. Obviously, there are a number of really long chat logs. I believe the Rolando Rescue one was about 3 weeks long. And I think there's probably up there with Lorne's, maybe the second biggest chat log. But most of them will have been, like, talking to them for a week at most, and not as detailed chats as Lorne. Lorne devoted a whole month to her. That's a big deal, especially in the situation that he was in. So he devoted a full month to that, and then found out that this person wasn't real. Then found out it was a sting operation. Then realised he was going to prison. Then realised he'd been humiliated on national TV. Now, when he sat there in jail, rather than take stock of it and look inside and go, where have I gone wrong? What is it I've done wrong? As we've already said before, it was all projection of everybody else. NBC, perverted justice, the police, my family, the internet, fucking the moon probably got blamed at some point, you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure everything was to blame. Don't thank me, thank the moon's gravitational pull. But yeah, I'm sure Simpsons reference there for anybody that spots it. But yeah, there will have been. It's just remarkable. It's not. It is. It's remarkable from our perspective because we think logically. If you listen to my stuff, you know, not to say that anybody that doesn't think logically, but what I'm trying to say is, if you listen to these type of videos, you must share a similar interest in the deeper aspects of this type of stuff. So from your perspective, you can't understand why he makes the decisions that he does. You can't fathom. Even me and Shin was having this conversation the other day. From your perspective, you can't understand why he would be sitting in prison and not figure out where he's gone wrong. But from his perspective, that's just not the way that his brain is operating. That's not the way that his thought processes. From his true reality, and everybody's reality is different because it's all a made-up reality, all of ours. From his reality, everybody had done him wrong, and he was the victim, hence the lawsuits. This is what makes Lornography so interesting. We don't just have a guy who refuses to accept responsibility. We have a guy who refuses to accept any responsibility in the most extreme of circumstances. Really extreme. He didn't just get caught. He got humiliated in court. He didn't just get a little bit humiliated. He got humiliated to the point where it's impossible to get more humiliated. The chat log gave us an insight into this guy's pathetic life. And it was pathetic. Sleeping on the floor, fucking putting a towel at the bottom of the door, going to the karaoke and singing crap songs with idiots and doing really crappy jobs. I mean, there's nothing wrong with those things, but running away from his troubles, not having a good relationship with his family. He got an erection over a $300 credit limit on a credit card. All of that, but from me and you, we wouldn't be able to bear that humiliation. I mean, we wouldn't need to anyway because we wouldn't get in that position. But he doesn't see it that way, does he? That's not his reality. It's ours to look up upon it. I mean, even me and you, as we're saying this now, we can't look outside of ourselves and look inward. There were people would have a different opinion of you and your life. It's like when when you're in a relationship with someone and you're having an argument with that person or whatever, we've all been there. And your judgment is so clouded by emotions that you always ring a mate up and say, am I behaving like a bit of a dick there? And all that kind of stuff. Because it's so easy for somebody to look from the outside and get a clear perspective on what's going on. Because when you're involved in it, your emotions are all at play, and it basically means that you've totally lost the plot. And that's the trick of that self-discipline. That's one of the tricks of life, is to remain is to remain impartial, even in your own life, to see things objectively. But it's kind of impossible to do, really, if you live in a kind of the typical way of taking things personally. You know what I mean? So if you kind of look at his youth, you can't really look at his youth and criticise him for not being self-disciplined, in my opinion. From what we know of him, it will have been ridiculously challenging for him. He didn't have guidance. It's massive that he didn't have a proper male figurehead for guidance. He would have had his brothers. We don't know. There could have been someone that took him under his wing for all we know, but based on the evidence that we've got, it would have been... He didn't really have a male figurehead, a strong male role model in his life. So self-discipline will have been very, very difficult. He wouldn't have had he joined the Air Force. It didn't last long. That will have instilled, if he'd have stuck with that will have instilled a massive amount of self-discipline in it. I don't know if anybody actually has the specific reasons, but of course it would seem that, doesn't seem to be kind of... Seems to be a common trait of his quitting, doesn't it? So, and then I believe that he's had a few medial jobs after that, and then he kind of got involved in this septic tank stuff, which was kind of on the surface of it seemed like a good idea. If you get involved in waste management, shall we say, it's something that not a lot of people will want to be involved in, because it's it's involving fucking human waste and whatnot. But it's like, if you could think that you can make a living out of it and you can do a good job, I think that's fantastic. Get it done. I wouldn't have a problem with doing that. It gives you a bit of an advantage as well, because a lot of people go, I'm not doing that, and they might want to get involved in like computers or something that's cool. But that ended up going wrong, didn't it? He kind of... Obviously, it wouldn't have been his fault, but you would think that if he's got into that situation, that discipline, self-discipline, when it comes to a business, is absolutely enormous, isn't it? Absolutely enormous. So, his family situation, as he's growing, Lorne, he does seem to have a strong affiliation with his family. He does seem to be a family-orientated type of person, although he's not selfless at all. He's kind of a selfish person. I think he likes the idea of belonging, and because he never belonged to anything like, he struggled at school. There is, I believe, information that he was like bottom of his class, or bottom of his graduation. I don't know exactly how it works in the States. But if that's the case, then it would have been tough, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? A massive thing for him, well, probably the biggest... the whole reason that this guy, that his downfall was so dramatic was his relationship with sexuality. It's massive. We've not covered it in as much detail as I'd like, because we don't have the full information, but him growing up and going through adolescence and not having any girlfriends and feeling alienated from the opposite sex and having, being sexually frustrated, it will have just played havoc with his psyche and his emotions, and he's never been able to get over that. His attraction to children is open to debate with regard to, is it specifically a genetic thing like I believe it is in Fettridge. I don't believe it is in Lorne. I think that he's developed it because his relationship with growing up and not maturing in the way that normal people do. Him not being able to mature properly will have just been key in his attractions, this bizarre fascination with her going through puberty and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying I'm right. It's just a kind of theory I have. I don't think he's quite as, because he does go after adult women. You have people, I mean, I suppose McFetridge does as well, really, but his perversions are very deeply ingrained. It's open to debate, like I said. It's just that I've been wrong about him before, so don't hang me out to dry if I'm wrong or you believe I'm wrong. I'm not quite sure, but this discipline is key, and we're not just talking about discipline. Discipline of the mind is very important. You know what I mean? It's not just discipline with regard to, I'm going to get... I mean, it's all about discipline of the mind. If you discipline your mind, then the rest of that's basically what will make your life fall into place. But disciplining on your emotions and what's going on when no one else is around. So, for instance, let's just say that you have an attraction to these young kids, or you see one and you're attracted to one. You have to discipline your mind not to allow that to happen. Now, if that's a genetic thing, there's nothing you can do about that, but you do have an ability to not ponder on it. So let's just say you're walking in the street and you see a 13-year-old that's dressed in a provocative manner. Then you don't indulge in that. You don't keep looking at her and go, oh, fucking hell, I love a bit of that. Do you know what I mean? It's like we all, as adults, and adult guys will either admit it or they won't. You see younger, not children, but you see younger adults who are far too young, and you know that it's like forbidden. But they're still of age, and you know you can't look because it just doesn't seem right. Something inside tells you that person's growing up. I've got no business. And although you look and your biology takes over and you find them attractive, you don't indulge in that. You don't indulge in it because you know it's wrong. Lorne doesn't seem to have that inside him that tells him when something's right or wrong. I think we all do, but some of us are just not connected with it, and I think that's what empathy is. It's part of it anyway. But with him, he never got a grip of it, because when he was talking to Chris Hansen, when he, I think I should go to counselling and get off the internet. That was his, in my opinion, that was the true part of him coming out. That was a dose of reality. That was a dose of clarity for Lorne, and he was giving himself, because he was put on the spot. He didn't have he wasn't strong-willed enough to stand up to Chris, and he was in a bad situation. So the truth was coming out, and he said, what are you going to do? I think I should go to counselling to get off the internet. I've got to do something because I can't do this. That was the truth coming out, in my opinion, because he realised the gravity of his situation, and he knew that he'd fucked up big time. So why is it then that even after that he didn't take his own advice and he continues to put himself in these situations? Lack of self-discipline. Even though he built himself up in prison, he did a lot of, I was going to say admirable things, but I suppose from a certain perspective it could be viewed as admirable. He's quite a resourceful chap, as we've said before. He built him, he went to the gym, put a bit of muscle on, learned to play the guitar. He should have been a master when he got out if he'd took it seriously. Something I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. He wrote a book. I've not read. I'll never read that book. I'd want to, but if I had a choice between reading Lorne Armstrong's book or a fucking book about Elon Musk, I'm not going to read Taken Abroad. It's just not going to happen. I just don't want to dedicate the time to it. So, that will have taken a certain amount of self-discipline for Lorne to do. It's easy for him because he's in prison. He's got fuck all else to do. But he kind of wrote all the lawsuits. As misguided as it was, he's proactive. He's like, right, what do we need to do? Right, everybody else needs to pay for my mistakes. But he doesn't, his train of thought isn't, right, everybody else is going to suffer because I'm a fuckwit. I'm standing up for myself. I need to survive because I've been wronged. You know what I mean? He lacks the true insight to understand why he was in that situation. A part of him knew it, a part of him knew that it was that it was all down to him, but he hides it from himself. Self-deception. That's all it is, you know. And we all know that, you know, the more you start to lie, the more you believe that lie, and that's when you become virtually kind of insane. You know, that's when you just lose total grip on reality. So, if you look at the Betty situation, that's a great example of how self-discipline just doesn't exist in the right ways. He basically doesn't. There's so many things that he's done. You know, we was talking in the stream the other week about all the, you know, that we had the kind of fun stream about his kind of admirable traits. We looked at the fact that he wrote poetry, he did his music, he worked out, he supposedly looked after his family. He has all these things that he do, but he doesn't specialise and work hard enough in any of those areas where it can actually be beneficial for him. He'll dabble in this, he'll dabble in that, he'll do this, he'll do that, but he can't do any of it well enough to live a productive life. So he went into the Betty situation, I don't believe with the intention to scam her, but very quickly, if he'd have been thinking effectively and had this true kind of this self-disciplined mindset, then he wouldn't have gone into that situation, because he would have known that he couldn't do it. I believe that he was reckless when he went into it. I think a part of him thought, I can get this job done. And then he very quickly realised he couldn't. And then he fucked off and left. He did the worst thing. You know, it's still to this day, he's no interest in paying her back. And we all know he never will. And God bless, you know, thanks to everybody that, you know, all the sort of community rallied together and got Betty her money back. Hopefully Lorne will never find that out. I'm sure he won't. I mean, not that it'll fucking matter anyway, because he wouldn't have paid her back. You know, it just in my mind, if he found out, it'd be like, it'd be like a little bit of arrogance on his part. Oh well, I don't need to pay it back now, but it's kind of no consequence anyway, because he wouldn't have fucking give her a dime. But you know that if he was, let's just say he got into that, you know, many people will get themselves into situations like that they, you know, they realise they haven't got the necessary skills. People will let them down. They bought the wrong materials. They did this wrong. They did that wrong. The weather ruined it. Fucking so many things. But he ran off. He fucking ran off. It's like, dude, it's just typical, isn't it? And that's one of the reasons why another one of the reasons why people never give him a break. Because not only did he try preying on kids, he's running off with whole couples' money. And I don't mean to laugh that it's funny towards Betty, because obviously, you know, and you know, God bless him, her other half. It's funny looking at him and his bashful ways, and the it's kind of comedy style that he would just run off. And also, that's true karma in effect there, because he didn't realise if he'd have stuck around and sorted it out, he might never have got caught in this sting. If he'd have gone to Betty and said, I fucked up here, I've really fucked up, I don't know what to do, they would have been able to work something out, and Lorne would have felt better about himself for doing it, and that will have instilled some kind of dignity in him and some kind of work ethic and self-discipline. And that would have stayed with him. And I don't think Lorne would have ever made president. But I believe that if he'd have had enough about him to resolve that situation, I wouldn't be talking about this now. Well, obviously, but he wouldn't have been caught in the sting. It's massive. Another thing is that the catfishes, right? He refuses to learn his lessons. Like, I don't know what's going on with him in the minute. There'll always be someone somewhere that'll want to prank him. And why wouldn't there be? Because he's an easy target, isn't he? You know what I mean? He's like, well, let's get, you know, and it can be very, very funny. It's very, very funny. I understand I don't think it's the highest thing that one can do. In fact, it isn't. But I understand why people would want to. You know, there will always be someone somewhere, but yet why doesn't he say no? I mean, there's many reasons. He's lonely. He's got nothing else to do. He's got low self-esteem. He feels worthless. He's bored. It's a bit of attention for him. That's the way his relationships have always been. He doesn't know anything else. He's not capable of having a proper, full-on relationship. He's just not capable. So, but yet, if he truly had understood what self-discipline was, it wouldn't be an issue. He wouldn't. He'd use common. And Lorne's not that thick. Oh, actually, his intelligence or lack thereof has always been debated. But I believe he's got enough about him to know when he's being dicked. But he's that desperate and stupid. But yet, self-discipline, if he knew what he was doing, he'd be like, well, it doesn't matter that I'm desperate and lonely. This is only going to be harder for me in the long run if I put up with this. And he'd immediately stop it with all this crazy shit that he gets involved in. But he won't, will he? He just won't do it because he wants that quick and immediate release. Oh, I no longer feel lonely. Oh, that's great. But you have to embrace that uncomfortableness, and then it transmutes into peace eventually. But it's very difficult. He should read David Goggins' book. That'll sort him out. The sex offender classes. Why is he one of the only people that's never been able to get anywhere? It's obvious that he doesn't participate. He doesn't do what's necessary. He won't engage with them. He won't speak the truth. None of that. So it's never going to work. He doesn't have a motivation to heal, to get better, because he's no self-discipline. None. It's like you see people now in England, right? I don't know if they have them in the States or wherever you're listening. Mobility scooters of people that are like in the late 50s and 60s, and they're quite capable of walking, but they have got, like, they're obese or whatever, and they ride around in these mobility scooters that they get for free off the social and all that, and the whole lives, and it's difficult to say this without sounding like a judgmental arsehole, and maybe I am, but you look at these people and you just think, well, what has led you down this road? You've not exercised, you've not looked after yourself. Obviously, in some cases, there's going to be a disabilities and that's become, but all the 99% of all these illnesses and conditions are caused by not living in the right way and not being disciplined enough to exercise regularly, to eat the right foods, to do healthy things, to be with healthy people, to all that kind of stuff. And on some degree, the world programs you to live like that. People make money from people buying stupid shit and eating shit foods and just watching crap TV. It's the way that most, people feed off the weak, But it's so evident in people's lives, isn't it? Ambition at the workplace, if you want to climb the ladder, which, you can do if it's for the right goals. It takes a lot of discipline. Look at Lorne's situation when he was in the call centre and he was ringing up. I told my boss to go fuck himself because he was trying to tell me who I could talk to and who I couldn't. So basically, what's probably happened there is Lorne was sat at one of these I'd love to hear one of those fucking calls. Oh God. Lorne was probably sat at one of the booths when he's supposed to be making calls, and the person next to him is having a conversation with probably some woman about an underage kid, and what, you know what I mean. And then the boss said, "Hey, Lorne, you're supposed to be working. Could you please get to it?" And then he's going to try telling me who I could talk to and who I couldn't. So I told him to fuck himself. Well, no, he's told you to do your job, dude. You're in it, and I'll have it that job will have been difficult. But ask yourself a question. If you was in his situation and you needed the money, you didn't want to sleep on the floor, would you do a job like that just until things got better? You would do. unless you found something else. Now, he was out of work for it, and he'd try, fair play to Lorne. He works. He's not totally bone idle. He actually has self-discipline, more self-discipline than some people I actually know, in some degrees. You know what I mean? He's drinking. Enormous. I mean, fucking hell, how many times have I done streams and videos about Lorne's drinking? And that's key. And I think I've got a pretty good take on the old alcohol thing, because I had a drink problem for a long time. I was never an alcoholic, but I drunk far too much every day when I wasn't at work. It never massively interfered with my work life, but I was starting to get a beer belly. I didn't look particularly healthy. I was hanging around with boring people talking about boring things, and it is nothing but a waste of time. Especially in my situation. I mean, you can drink and have a bit of fun. I don't think there's anything specifically wrong with that if you've got control over it, total control. And it's very difficult to do that, because it's just, I don't drink at all apart from holidays anymore. I'm really disciplined when it comes to that, because I don't want to anymore. I've got to the point now where it doesn't even, I'm dying for a drink. I don't actually want to drink. Like in the evening, most people have a few beers, right? Most of my friends and people at work and stuff like that, they'll sit in and they'll have a glass, especially women, like a glass of wine and things. But if I did that, I wouldn't be able to read. Because if you have a couple of beers, then you can't read properly. You can't take information and read a book. I can't, anyway. So, why would I want to do that? And then, if I did that, I'd feel a bit ropey in the morning, and I wouldn't get up for my 5 a.m. run. But Lorne wants that. I mean, Lorne's got more demons to deal with than your average person. So, from that perspective, it's understandable. But he ended up back in prison. He ended up back in jail for 6 months for drinking. And yet he blamed it on everybody else when he was in court. Rather than say, shit, I need to stop drinking here. It wasn't even something that occurred to him. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, this is what I mean about life continually kind of trying to make him see the error of his ways, but he refuses. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. I think I've pretty much covered quite a bit there. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope there's been some kind of new insight. I know we're kind of treading old ground when it comes to Lorne, but I do think that some of these videos can be quite beneficial with regard to, just trying to do something a bit different than usual. That's kind of there's a time and a place for having a laugh at him, but I do like these little talks. So, guys, could you please let me know if you've enjoyed it? Any comments that you've got. If you've liked the video, please like it. I would appreciate it. And if you haven't, please give me some honest feedback, which I appreciate, because there was a guy who didn't like the last Lorne video, and he kind of put quite an unhelpful comment, and then I asked him to expand on it, and he put a very well-worded couple of comments about why he didn't particularly enjoy it. Like, right, cheers for that. That's fine. So, yeah, it's all about feedback. I hope you're all doing very well, and I will speak to you soon.